What can be said about SpongeBob SquarePants that hasn't already been said 1,000 times before? Arguably one of the greatest cartoons of all time and the most iconic show of Nickelodeon and the 21st century, its combination of innocent charm and witty, iconic humor made it a special part of my childhood and of countless other kids, teens, and adults as well, spawning over 11 seasons and 2 movies in its now 20-year history since it debuted on May 1st, 1999. But most of you have probably already heard the general consensus about the show. While its first 3 seasons could go down in history as some of the best a cartoon has ever produced, the show started to dip in quality after its first movie and then completely went down the drain in its 6th, 7th, and 8th seasons.
Boo, you stink!
After most of its writing team changed and Steven Hillenburg, the show's brilliant creator, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, God rest his soul, left. After the show's second movie was produced after its 9th season, Hillenburg returned along with some of the old staff, causing the show to rise out of its funk, but still not be what many people consider to be even close to the quality of those first 3 seasons.
Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip!
A lot of people have made videos on YouTube outlining what about the newer seasons made them so poor, but I haven't necessarily seen a lot of people talk about what exactly made those first 3 seasons so good. As seen from the season's post-second movie, simply getting rid of the bad aspects of those bad seasons don't necessarily make the show spectacular again. So what made those first 3 seasons of the show so consistently good? Even when I was a kid and didn't really notice the quality change in the show or which season certain episodes were from, why were almost all of my favorites, and a lot of people's favorites for that matter, contained in seasons 1, 2, or 3? What's up guys, it is Playback Zach here, and today we're gonna look at why old SpongeBob was so good. Reason number 1, the background and setting.
Crazy talk.
It's not crazy talk. This is crazy talk. Sorry.
This seems like an odd way to start off the list. The backgrounds? Really? But I think that this is a good starting point. Because after all, what's the first thing you notice about any cartoon? What it looks like. I've seen a lot of people say that one of the only things the newer seasons of the show does better than the older seasons is in regards to its animation and appearance, and even though the newer seasons of the show do look really good, I'm gonna have to say that I actually disagree. This isn't because I think that the newer seasons are worse than the older seasons in every single aspect, but because I feel like this newer animation looks more over the top and its design less authentic than the older seasons.
How about this one? I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash.
SpongeBob's old design had its own unique style to it, with Season 1 having its own iconic hand-drawn look, and Seasons 2 and 3 being, in my opinion, the perfect balance between the animation looking smoother while still having that classic unique SpongeBob style to it. Now compare that to the newer seasons where even the island in the intro and the clouds in the sky look computerized. As corny as this may be to say, it just doesn't feel as homey or distinctive anymore. And that aspect of the show is without a doubt something that made those earlier seasons so endearing to many viewers. Now let's go to reason number 2, the soundtrack. If the first thing you notice about a cartoon is what it looks like, then the second thing you may notice about it is what it sounds like. Let's face it, it's no secret that SpongeBob SquarePants is a soundtrack juggernaut, and nowhere was this more apparent than in its first 3 seasons. Whether it was the nostalgic Hawaiian hulas of Season 1,
the sea, so fascinating, so wonderful,
to the funny tunes of Seasons 2 and 3, to the downright memorable songs present throughout,
Over here.
Whatever you do, don't look at him.
SpongeBob? What?
SpongeBob's soundtrack was iconic and really added to the show's appeal and overall identity. Even specific places like the Krusty Krab or boating school, and even specific people such as the police, had their own memorable jingles. And let's not forget the original songs either.
Big Larry came round just to put him down.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. It's shaping up to be a wonderful holiday. But this grill is not a home. This is not the stove I know.
Amazing.
The best time to wear a striped sweater. Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song. Our CAMPFIRESONG song.
Alright, maybe Sweet Victory wasn't an original song, but you get the point. Was there really any show better than SpongeBob with its music? Most shows pale in comparison to old SpongeBob's soundtrack, even the newer seasons of the show. Although some of the soundtrack has stayed the same, a lot of the memorable or Hawaiian grooves have been replaced with slower, bouncier music, and although these songs aren't bad in their own right, feel like they belong more in a generic YouTube tutorial video than SpongeBob SquarePants.
Hey Vsauce, Michael here. Where are your fingers?
And although there have been some cool original songs along the way, can anything really compare to those first 3 seasons? I don't think so. Now let's go to reason number 3, the characters and their interactions. Any good show needs good characters, from the main players to the semi-main characters to the recurring characters to the one-offs, and no show did that better in my opinion than old SpongeBob did. In essence, you can sum up its success in 4 simple steps. Step number 1 is having unique, memorable characters, from their designs to their voice acting to their personalities from top to bottom. In the old seasons, you had SpongeBob, the naive, childish, and affectionate, yet responsible, adult-like, hilarious goofball who loved jellyfishing, fry cooking, and staying optimistic. His dim-witted advice giver and best friend Patrick, the relatable one-liner King Squidward who was pretty much every adult spirit animal,
Here, please hit me as hard as you can.
the over-the-top cheapskate yet fatherly figure and corny dad Mr. Krabs, who happened to have a whale for a daughter, his diabolical yet pathetic nemesis Plankton, who was always gold whenever on screen, who happened to have a computer for a wife, a confident yet caring, scientific yet karate-loving squirrel in an airsuit, the iconic pet snail, side characters such as Jim Buff Larry the Lobster and the worn-out boating instructor Mrs. Puff, and fantastic 1 or 2 episode characters such as Bubble Bass, Flats the Flounder, and Squilliam Fancyson.
I hear you're playing the cash register now.
Step number 2 is to make those characters likable and know which characters to make more complex than others. Even though the show is a comedy, it took great care into making its main characters multi-layered, having numerous and sometimes conflicting aspects to their personalities, with their bad traits played up for laughs instead of making them unlikable. On the contrary, the smaller characters remain to be more over the top and memorable in their appearances. Step number 3 is knowing which characters to put together for the best results. The creators always seem to try their best to put the right characters together, playing off each other's personalities to create some great and memorable dynamics.
1 dozen crying cows on the farm. Up!
Thanks, Farmer Brown.
And finally, step number 4 is having those characters shine in episodes instead of be the episode. Telling a story with the characters or having them learn a lesson instead of being about their personality traits at face value, such as SpongeBob being annoying, Krabs being cheap, or Squidward being depressed. In the newer seasons, most of the main characters have become one-dimensional and unlikable. SpongeBob in most of his appearances feels like a whiny, annoying child or some weird alien-like creature with no feelings, or perhaps too much feelings. Patrick is just either excessively dumb or just an unlikable brat. Squidward's character is more tragic than funny nowadays. Krabs is just predictably cheap and that's it. And Sandy just feels cringy and unsufferably arrogant. The side characters are barely used, and the one-offs now just feel void of personality and are just excessively designed to try and make them memorable, except for of course Zeus the Guitar Lord, the greatest side character created by man.
Hey, I'm Zeus the Guitar Lord. I don't have a guitar yet, but if I did, I would want a really killer one. Like this!
Random characters are put together in episodes for no reason, and some episodes feel more of a let's put blank and blank together for the fans type of episode than anything. Honestly, a lot of shows just can't compete with old SpongeBob's characters and how they were used, and that includes the newer seasons. And that brings us to reason number 4, the plots and humor of the show.
Chocolate? Did you say chocolate?
Yes, sir. With or without nuts.
Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!
Taking a look back at those first 3 seasons, it can be hard to understand why those episodes were so good. They just were. There were so many memorable episodes, sequences, jokes, and lines that people are still quoting and remembering and even memeing today, so it kinda raises the question as to what made the show so funny and the episodes so good. When you really look at it, the answer isn't too complicated. From what I've seen, old SpongeBob had a simple formula, and that formula was this: tell a good/funny story with jokes along the way. That's it. Sounds pretty straightforward for a comedy show, right? I mean, isn't that what all comedy shows try to do?
It's first grade, SpongeBob.
Patrick, I'm sorry I doubted you.
Yes, but perhaps no cartoon did it even close to the standards set by old SpongeBob. Overall, the success of the plots and humor of old SpongeBob came down to this. It came up with simple yet memorable and funny, often satirical plots, took advantage of its characters' eccentric personalities, plus it helps that a sponge, squid, and starfish, among others, are delivering these jokes rather than just animated humans, used their dynamics to create small, amusing moments along the way, and then used iconic lines or faces to create really memorable, funny moments in a way that's just hard to replicate as good as old SpongeBob, fit in jokes anywhere it could, and made it all flow.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either.
I know that's a lot to take in, so here's a few examples of the writers taking advantage of their time and outclassing its competition in the comedy department. At the beginning of an episode, a lot of shows take the first few minutes establishing the story. In an episode like Pickles, however, the creators use that time to include a ton of funny Squidward one-liners.
Could you check?
No.
That end with him insulting a customer named Bubble Bass, who the episode centers around. So while other shows spend 3 minutes setting up the story, this episode already has about 5 funny moments, an iconic interaction, and the story set up in half of that time. In smaller moments of episodes, other shows will use this time to have plot-related dialogues between the characters, and maybe throw in a punchline somewhere. SpongeBob takes this time to move the plot forward by throwing in jokes along the way, such as Patrick falling down in the background of Texas, or Sponge and Squid's funny dialogue in Pickles. While other shows try to force their big jokes, and they aren't very original to begin with, SpongeBob's big jokes flow right into the scene and are super memorable and original, such as Patrick's ugly barnacle story, his Wumbo speech, is mayonnaise an instrument, the screaming chocolate guy, the hash-slinging slasher, and SpongeBob's Krusty Krab pizza song, among many others. And that's why old SpongeBob's formula of telling a good, funny story with jokes along the way worked better than so many other cartoons that have tried the same strategy. It had its own unique brand of humor that just couldn't be beat or replicated, but it also knew how to use its time and had a great strategy. And that brings me to reason number 5, the overall atmosphere of the show. Better than any show I've ever seen, old SpongeBob had an incredible ability to appeal to both younger and older viewers. There was an innocence and charm to the show that made it family friendly and great for kids, while also being witty and satirical enough to reel in teens and even adults. And of course, its trademark humor pretty much appealed to everyone. Sometimes, there are even moments where I'll look back and say, man, how did I miss that, and how did they get that past the censors? But you know what? That was the genius of the show. I didn't even feel like my childhood is ruined watching those scenes, because the adult jokes are more clever than they are just crude, going right over our heads as kids and becoming that much more funny watching it now.
Oh yeah.
Now look at the newer seasons, where the innocent charm has been replaced with louder, more annoying characters and dumbed down stories, and the humor now resorts to over-the-top moments and or predictable punchlines, and you'll see that the atmosphere of the show has really changed. Simply put, old SpongeBob was just a simpler show. It was nice, it was funny, and you could tell that the people making it were making it because it's just what they love to do. Now, and I hate using this word, but the show just feels like a sellout, with rating trap specials and a louder, less authentic feel. But you know what? At the end of the day, not all of the newer episodes are bad, and at least we'll always have those great older seasons, those seasons which were so good for the reasons stated in this video, to enjoy. Well, there you have it guys, the reasons why old SpongeBob was so good. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to this channel, where you can join the Playback Zach attack. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I will see you next time. Adios.